You guys, I think it's finally time to talk about Modok. In the past few weeks, I've seen this little Ferrero Rocher get more hate than any other CGI creation before him. More than Cats, more than Sonic, even more than Will Smith's Genie. Oh my, I thought I had forgotten. But instead of simply calling Modok trash for a few seconds and collecting my internet points, today, I want to dive deep and do a thorough analysis on exactly why he doesn't work. From his suit and mask design, to his facial proportions, and to his bizarre character arc. And if you stick around, I take a stab at redesigning him myself. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Do you remember Darren Cross? Because the movie sure thinks reminding us over and over is somehow hilarious.
Darren? Darren? Darren?
Jane?
You see what I mean? Marvel jokes are becoming a little too repetitive lately. At the end of the first Ant-Man, Scott goes subatomic and destroys his suit, which ends up shrinking parts of his body until he's nothing but a crumpled mess. We learn that he's Kang's main henchman, but aside from them literally saying one line to each other for the whole movie, we really don't get a sense of how deep their partnership runs. Might have been something cool to explore, but no. We have to dedicate screen time to this. Anyway, his backstory for turning into Modok does make sense, and it's actually pretty horrifying if you think about it. And imagine if Marvel had gone serious with it. How interesting that would have been. Just because he looks like a joke didn't mean they had to treat him like one by default. But what did they do instead? Scott says he's sitting in a Bjorn and they showed us his tiny little ass. Of all the asses in the MCU, this is the last one I wanted to see. But now that we're caught up on Darren Cross, let's get into his actual design. Now, I'm not a designer, but I'd like to think I can tell if a design is good or not. I usually just ask myself, could I do this? And in the case of the leaked artwork for Modok last year, yeah, I could do this. People have been saying he looks like Mr. Electric from Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and, well, they're not wrong. I mean, if you want to get technical, Modok's modeling, texturing, lighting, animation, and compositing are all improved, but you just can't help but see where people are coming from. For this video though, let's judge Modok by himself. To start off, let's get a good look at his mask. It's questionable why they've modeled teeth into a faceplate. But hey, it's the quantum realm. Things don't make sense. The eyes look like high beams on a Toyota Camry, and the rest of him sort of all blends together in this golden ball of mush. Now once that mask lifts up, and we see his actual face, we can begin to analyze what went so very wrong. Let's look at Unmasked Modok next to Corey Stoll, the poor bastard who played him. You can see that technically everything was transferred over. His eyes, his nose, his mouth. But where they f***ed up is when they stretched his face out horizontally. I would love to know who made that call, because once they did that, the resemblance immediately got lost. This isn't Darren Cross, this is Durian Crust. But this got me thinking. What if you took Modok's head and stretched it back up to the right proportions? What if you made him look more evil and grounded? Would that look any better? So I dusted off the old Photoshop and did a little experiment. I don't know. What do you think? Would you have wanted to see a grounded and gritty Modok like me? Or do you prefer what we got? Let me know in the comments. After this exercise, I came to appreciate what the visual effects team was up against. The fact that his ears and chin get covered up, we're left with such small real estate for his face that he was always going to look ridiculous. But now that we understand the design a bit better, we can start to examine a couple of smaller details. To me, there were two things that could have used some help. One, Modok's mask is made to look menacing, but every time it lifts up, he looks happy. I get that the face reveal is always played off as a joke, like, oh no, it's Modok, he's gonna kill us. Psych, it's just Darren. Groundbreaking. But there's such a disconnect every time that happens. Shouldn't what's on the outside reflect what's on the inside? It feels like two different characters almost. And two, whenever we see Modok's weapons expand or retract back into his suit, there's absolutely no weight to them. Reminds me of the part in The Mask when Jim Carrey puts away all those guns. A floating ball pulling back all that heavy weaponry would definitely make his whole body dip a little. Say what you want about the Transformers movies, but man, whenever those Transformers transformed, I could feel every moving part being pushed and pulled by each other. Little things like this probably wouldn't have saved Modok necessarily, but at least it would have grounded him more in reality. And the last thing I want to bring up is Modok's character arc. After a brief fight with Cassie where she apparently punches all the evil out of him, he does a complete 180 and turns into a good guy. Enough so that at the end of the battle with Kang, he rushes to the rescue, screaming, It was so unearned that I felt absolutely nothing when he said it. Where in the movie did we ever get a sense that he was struggling with his identity? You know what movie did a good job of that? The Force Awakens. When Kylo Ren is feeling himself being pulled to the light side, a little scene like that somewhere in the middle of the movie would have gone a long way. I think Marvel expected this line to hit the same way some of their other classic lines have hit.
I am Iron Man.
I'm always angry.
I could do this all day.
But it just didn't. Instead, it felt more like this.
Eat my hammer!
Marvel, you can't just make characters say things out of nowhere. You have to build up to it, with meaningful character development. And yes, I know it takes time, something that's increasingly running out in the ever-expanding MCU, especially now that the multiverse is involved. But maybe grab a time stone, and go back to when you understood that. So at the end of my analysis, I hope we've gotten a clearer picture of why Modok just didn't work. His place in the story as a villain's sidekick / comedic relief didn't hit the home run they were expecting. After all, if no one in this movie can take him seriously, even the filmmakers themselves, how is the audience supposed to? And the fact that they took Corey Stoll's facial features and squished them down like a peanut butter jelly sandwich doesn't help. At the end of the day, we have to remember that Modok doesn't just exist in a bubble. He's part of something bigger. The MCU merchandising machine. His likeness will be used forever in future movies, TV shows, and video games. Like whatever this is. What is this? I must be getting old, because this looks like the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life. When you're spinning so many plates, you forget to make a compelling and relatable character first. It's pretty crazy that a talking tree who only says one line is still one of the most beloved MCU characters, and he was introduced 9 years ago. No amount of money or time could have saved Modok, because the idea was fundamentally flawed from the beginning. But don't blame the VFX artists. They were just following orders from someone higher up, and that someone needs a good long look in the mirror. Maybe then they'll understand what a face looks like. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.